Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dave, and in today's video I want to talk about something that's really on the minds of most Australians, if not people around the world, and that is the ability to be able to deal with the threat of bushfires. Now where we are here, we've just had a major bushfire in the last month. Directly behind the camera here, about 800 metres away, about 500 yards, a major bushfire started very much on a day like today is going to be. It was about 41 degrees, had a very, very strong wind, and it got out of control very quickly.
Firefighters stretched, residents and pets fleeing as three bushfires merge into a mega inferno at Abermain. Several properties feared lost, among them this tyre business on Cessnock Road. Now reduced to ruins. Hoses in hand for those staying behind to save their homes. Crews tackling the blaze from all directions, managing to take control as conditions eased overnight.
Now I'm very lucky where we are living here at the minute because our little small farm is quite open. Our paddocks are grassed and we don't have a lot of trees or vegetation on our property, but our surrounding neighbours do. They have a lot of trees and a lot of vegetation that would be a real threat if a bushfire came through. In addition to that, on one side of our property we have a major national park that certainly is a big threat if there would ever be a chance of getting a bushfire through there. Beside me here you can see my Japanese K-truck. This is a 1996 Mitsubishi minicab, and what I'm going to go through today is the procedure on how I set up a water tank, a water pump and some water hoses in the back of my little mini truck to be able to be a bit more prepared in case there is a bushfire. Right, the first component you're going to need to set up a little firefighter unit is a vehicle. And as mentioned, I'm going to use my 1996 Mitsubishi minicab truck. Viewers to the channel would have seen this truck in a number of videos over the last 12 months. In particular, if you're interested in this truck, I do have a playlist on it, and I think there's 3 or 4 videos in the playlist. The first one was the procedure I had to go through to purchase the truck, and I bought it from an importer that brought it out from Japan. So that video is all about that process and the cost and the procedure and so forth. The second video I did was on sourcing another set of wheels for it to put bigger wheels and tyres on the truck, and that was a bit of a saga. And the third video was changing the rear suspension on this mini truck to put in adjustable air suspension, airbag suspension on the back. And certainly this has given me the capacity to carry a lot more in the back of my little truck. The second item you're going to need to try and find is some sort of water container, and these IBC totes are ideal. They seem to be available just about everywhere in the world, and they're not very expensive. I think for these ones when I bought them they were, I think, less than $50 each, which is pretty good. They hold 1,000 litres of water, which is great for a firefighter unit. This particular tank, I'm just looking at the date stamp on the top here, was made in the 5th month of 19, so this tank has been about 5 years old now, and it's lived out in the Australian sun, and I was worried that the plastic would get quite brittle, but it's really surprising that it's still holding up quite well. But my advice would be for anybody that have these containers and they leave them outside is just be mindful of where the outlets are down the bottom here and have them pointing away from the sunlight or not in the direct sun, because they do become very brittle, just the valve part, and what tends to happen is they tend to break down and then break off, and once that happens obviously there's no way of turning the flow off coming out of your tank. So just be mindful of that. Some of these you can repair, some are a heat pressed in unit, others are screw-in ones, so some tanks you can actually get new outlets for them and some you can't. Now, being just 4 weeks after having my total knee replacement, I'm not allowed to lift anything heavy, so I won't be lifting the IBC tank into the mini truck. I'm going to be using these pallet fork attachments that I have on my mini digger. I think most of you will have seen these before. There is a video I did on these when I first picked them up from UHI, so I'm going to use the mini digger to put the tote onto the truck. Well, it's just turned lunchtime. It's 12 o'clock midday. I've just checked the temperature and it's 40 degrees Celsius. It's stinking hot. Now the rear tray on this mini truck is actually a tipper, so it does actually tip up. It's got a hydraulic ram under there. But as well as being a tipper, it's also got the sides that still fold down like this, so it makes it ideal for loading equipment in sideways. If you have a forklift or what I've just done with the digger there, it makes it very versatile to do it. So it's a great feature to have. Okay, the third major component you're going to need for your firefighter unit is the suitable pump. And this is a genuine Davey firefighter pump on the back of a Honda GX 160 four-stroke engine down there. And the benefit of using a proper designed Davey firefighter pump or a similar firefighter pump on the back is you have a number of multiple outlets to connect pipes up to. So this is obviously your major inlet pipe here, and then you've got a choice of using the larger output connectors here, or I tend to just use the 25mm or 1-inch connectors here, which will go into my fire hose. And I have talked with some people that have thought that you could get away with using a trash pump instead of a firefighter unit like this one. And my only thoughts on that would be that a trash pump is very similar on the inlet, but a trash pump usually has a 2 or 3-inch single outlet on the top. It doesn't have these multiple size outlets for connecting hoses to. Plus a trash pump, I believe, and this may be wrong, I believe that a trash pump relies on pushing volume through a hose, not pressure through a hose, and you won't get a suitable pressure at the end of a trash pump to actually project water very far. So the idea of these Davey ones are that if you connect a firefighter hose to this one, that at the end of a 10-metre hose you still get about 95 psi, which is what you need to be able to project the water out of the hose towards the fire. Now this particular unit I got really lucky with. I was given it for free actually. My neighbour at the time I was living next to was a plumber, a commercial plumber, and they were using this particular unit in a trench to pump out water over a couple of weeks. When they retrieved it, they tried to start it on the pull cord here and they couldn't get the engine to turn over, and they had thought that at some stage the engine must have run out of oil and that the piston had seized, and that's why it wasn't working. I pulled all this apart and found out that because it was sitting in water, that the flywheel was actually rusted to the stator unit, which controls the spark in the engine. All that was rusted together, so I cleaned all that up, cleaned all the rust off it, put it all back together, and it started first kick. So that was a nice freebie. But they are, you know, if you're going to buy one of these, they are expensive. You have to weigh up, obviously, the decision whether it's worth buying one or not. You can buy them. Sometimes they appear secondhand on Facebook Marketplace. But really, to be able to do the job properly is you need to have a proper firefighter unit. Okay, let's now talk about how to connect up between your IBC outlet here and the inlet of the firefighter pump over here. The first thing you're going to need to track down is some sort of adapter that screws onto the IBC tank and then gives you threads that you can then step down to a hose to connect to the Firefighter. I got this one from my local irrigation store. They seem to be quite popular. This one has a O-ring on both sides there, so you don't need to put it on crazy tight. And so this initially just goes on there. And with these IBC tanks, there's not a lot of thread on the outlet. It's probably only 2 or 3 turns that you'll get on there. Then you need to do a step down adapter. So this comes down from 50mm on one side down to 40mm on the other side. So that goes in there. This has obviously got a seal there. So again, you don't need to do this crazy tight. That just goes in there. So now that you're down to this size, this will be the same size here as the same size here. So what I've got is a small section of hose. I had the irrigation store just cut me, and that's probably about 450, maybe 500mm, 16 inches long, something like that. And I've got my brass connectors on the end, and you'll see in there that I actually have rubber seals in there as well. Just make sure there's one on both ends, which there is. So I can put that on here now. If I can put that on one-handed, and screw that on. I'll just do this maybe hand tight at the minute, and then I will come back and get it tighter. That's pretty tight there. With the pump, I'm just going to move my pump over a little bit. And then I've got this end here, which then connects into my pump. So again, this is just a pretty easy thing. And again, because there is a rubber seal in there, it doesn't need to be stupid crazy tight. And I'll put that on there, and once I'm ready to use it, I will just double check all the connections are tight. So that's the IBC tank there connected into my Firefighter unit. Now all of what I've shown you so far you can do pretty quick. So putting the actual tank on the back of the truck, you can do that in 5 minutes. If you had a couple of guys, you can just lift it straight in. That goes in quick. You just got to put the pump on the back, which is quick. I will put a strap on this because when it does run, it does tend to vibrate a bit and move around. So I'll actually strap this down. Connecting the hose, what we just saw there, well, what's that take? Maybe another 2 or 3 minutes. So within 15 to 20 minutes, you can actually have this all set up in the back of your truck or utility or a trailer or wherever you're putting it. Now, the slowest part of the process next is putting water into the tank. So this is a 1,000-litre tank, and the trouble is when you're trying to fill it from a garden hose, it's only a 1/2-inch hose, it is going to take a while to actually fill this up full of water. I haven't put 1,000 litres in this because 1,000 litres would be just under a tonne in weight, which is probably a bit too much for my little truck. I'm going to put about 500 litres in and see how that goes initially. So, but that's the slowest part of this whole process. If you had something like a pump with a big size outlet on it and you could actually pump into the tank quicker, that would certainly make the process a little bit faster. Now this is the yellow firefighting hose. This is a 19mm internal diameter hose, and I've already connected one up to my Firefighter unit here, and it is sitting on the side of the bed down there. So I'm just going to connect up this other one here, making sure that there's a rubber seal in there, and this just goes onto there. And these hoses you can buy in a kit. I think when I bought these, I bought the 2 hoses. These are 10-metre hoses. I bought the 2 yellow hoses and this length of pipe here, and I think it was something like $125 or something like that from the irrigation store. So not all that expensive. We'll look at the end on here. So this is a proper Firefighter nozzle on the end here, and we can have a look at that when we actually start the unit up. Another thing I try and always have are a lot of spare rubber washers here that are on a piece of wire that are always attached to the pump. And the sizes I've got will fit either this size that goes on this fitting, and the bigger ones go on the inlet to the machine and the outlet of the IBC tank. So having lots of those on hand really is a time saving type thing. You don't want to be really pushed for time and then running around trying to find spare rubber washers. So I just leave them there. Righto, I've got my tap running in here and I'll see how long it's going to take on the timer to put in about 500 litres of water. Now you do need to prime these pumps, so this is the priming bung here. As long as your water in your tank is higher than the level here, all you can do is, you don't have to pour water in, you can just break that seal and take that out, and it will fill up with water, and then you just put it back in, so like that, and the pump is now primed. And that took about 20 minutes to put 500 litres in the tank. Now another thing that I really like about putting the firefighter unit on the back of my mini truck is that the truck itself is so small that it can just about get anywhere. So it can get down behind a house, down a laneway. It's only, what, 4 foot wide and about 10.5 feet long. So you can get it in all those sort of places. Now if you didn't have it in a truck like this, then you could have it on a trailer, but then you'd be trying to back your trailer into a really tight spot, which probably wouldn't work. And the other big benefit of putting it in a truck like this one is that you've got 4-wheel drive, and you've got high and low range in 4-wheel drive. So you can get into all sorts of tricky places and just crawl along to get in the right spot. Okay, let's start it up and give it a run and see how our water goes. Well, that's my setup on how I put the firefighter unit in the back of my mini truck. And as we saw, it's quite fast and easy to do. It only took about 20 or 30 minutes, and it certainly gives me more confidence, if you like, that if a bushfire does come through, that I at least have a first line of defence to try and protect my own home and to even help out my neighbours if they need it. Anyway, that's today's video. I do appreciate everybody watching the videos and supporting the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.